Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Look, oligarchy, plutocracy, the wealthy. You know what? I was having a discussion today, and one of the things we discussed is this stuff is overwhelming. Too many people think they have no recourse. Too many people think with all the things happening from all sides, the amount of work that progressives have to do in just about every department, in just about every avenue, it is difficult. It is hard. And there's a thing in science known as entropy. It's chaos, the chaos in the universe. And in general, the universe moves into what we call a larger state of entropy. In other words, things get more disorganized as time goes by. And in that process on Earth, what we try to do is organize things. We try to get things to work in an orderly fashion, which is not the way the universe works. Of course, there are some exceptions to that. I mean, if you have a drop of water, it tries to put itself into some sort of an order, into a drop, water round drop, etc., etc. But the general purpose of the universe is constant expansion, constant state of enlarging entropy. Okay, why do I say that? A lot of people are right now confused. A lot of people are right now thinking they don't matter. A lot of people right now believe that things cannot get better. That is what they believe. They believe they have no recourse. They have nothing to fight for. Well, there are a lot of progressives fighting on all different angles in all different areas. And the one thing I have to say is this. Nobody, no one person, no one group has all the answers. Nobody has all the answers. And that should bring some humility to all of us. And what do I mean by that? That means you open your mind and you listen to what others have to say. Folks, if you're just joining us, Facebook is having a whole lot of problems. I understand that Facebook Live may be currently difficult to access. On top of our video, there are other ways to see us live. Please remember to you can go to our YouTube channel. I've included the link to the YouTube Live channel, as well as Periscope. Egberto Willies is how you can is a Twitter account associated with our Periscope. So if you want to watch this program live, go there to see it live. By the way, we will also be answering and monitoring the chat screen, the stream from both Periscope and Facebook Live. We are lucky enough that we have that access. So you can still talk to us live, both on Facebook if you get access somehow, or on YouTube and Periscope. So we are here to talk to you. So what is the program about today? We are going to get into the program right now. Let me bring that up first. As you know, it's kind of a chaotic start today. Again, first fighting with Facebook to make sure things were functional, which they're not very well. But that's not a problem with us because there are many, many different ways to skin a cat. And that is what we intend to do. Anyhow, title of the show today: this is why our oligarchy is still in control, but we can stop it now. Progressives have a lot of work to do, but we must first get to the minds of many. That is the only way to get rid of the oligarchy. It is time for the oligarchy, folks. It is time for the oligarchy to go. Many believe that the cake is baked. We have no power to make a change. That is what the plutocracy, the oligarchy, those in power want you to believe. They want you to resign into mediocrity bordering on indentured servitude. But we will not allow that to occur. And today, we discuss what we must do. And there are several several issues that we have to take care. We have our bi-weekly guests, the former State Senate candidate, Democratic State candidate Tamara Shealey is here again today. She will be discussing the ADOS movement, and she will try to continuously lead us into why that movement as well is important. Why is the movement important? Without further ado, I bring you Tamara Shealey. ¿Cómo estás? How are you doing, my friend?
Hi, Egberto. Good afternoon, Politics Done Right family.
Well, great. Look, it's great to have you here. I know I don't necessarily have you on the best terms right now, so I'm gonna leave it up to you to hit what you want to hit first.
Well, this week, Egberto, we talked about ADOS on my timeline. I wanted to really dive in. We're still on the heels of those presidential debates. Kamala Harris came out with both fists. You know, she gave old Joe Biden the 1-2, but we are still having this debate on social media, on Twitter, about ADOS and her blackness. And
okay, what does that really mean?
And it doesn't. We are not the ADOS movement. Kamala Harris is black. You, Egberto, are black, right? We're
right,
black
of course.
people. We're having this black experience across the diaspora. So it's not just here in America. We are black people, but lineage matters. It matters. And Kamala is Indian and Jamaican, if I'm correct.
She's black, Indian, Jamaican.
Okay. I, Egberto, am definitely ADOS, an American descendant of slavery. And let me tell you my story. And let me tell your audience my story. I know that my family, I told you this, and I've said this before on the broadcast. I have an older aunt, my mother's oldest sister, would always tell me stories about growing up on the quarters. And as a little girl, and when she told me these stories, I never understood what the quarters meant. Like, is this a town? Is this a subdivision? No, my aunt grew up in the slave quarters, and she vividly used to tell me stories, and she would remember this being in the slave quarters. I have another cousin, young cousins, and one generation behind me, who were so afraid to even come in. I'm from Savannah, for those of you that don't know, but there's rural areas. My family is really, I am from Savannah. I grew up in the city, so I'm quote unquote, a city girl, not so rural as my family members, but the root of my family is in rural Georgia, like Eden, Georgia, Eden, Ella Bell, Georgia, Bryan County, little places that don't even have stop signs. And if they do, they're 1 or 2 stop signs. They're just dirt roads. I remember my family not wearing shoes, Egberto. I remember the white man coming around with the truck, and my aunts and uncles and cousins jumping on the back of this truck to go pick tobacco. I remember the shacks. I remember not having these aunts and not having a bathroom, Egberto. I remember the outhouse, and I remember crying because if they made me stay, I would have to use the bathroom, and I would have to go out into this outhouse. So I know that I am a direct descendant of slavery. I am very clear about my roots here in this country. So this ADOS movement speaks to those of us that are very clear that we are direct descendants of slaves. And when I tell you, I am the first one in my family to get a 4-year degree. I'm quote unquote the one that kind of made it. And I can look back. I've had an incident in my family today that proves to me that I am still in the midst of a people who are mentally and physically, and we're still in a place where we are behind the 8 ball in this country. Like, I know that the incident that happened in my family to just today proves to me, and it proves this whole ADOS movement, how a generation or 2 behind me, we still have a slave mentality, and we still are a broken people. So lineage matters. And when we talk about this ADOS movement, Egberto, we're speaking to those of us who know for a fact that I am still from a very poor, my people are still in a place where, I mean, I know what welfare is. Like, I know that. I know what food stamps is. I know what, like I said, I'm the first one in my family to have gotten a college education to this point. I'm getting my master's degree now. So I'm just telling you that I am a direct descendant of what slavery has done to us as a people in this country. And the ADOS movement is not taking anything away from blackness, our blackness, your blackness, Kamala's blackness. It's not taking anything away from our blackness. What it is speaking to is the pain. You had boots when you came in this country. And you know how they say, pull yourself up by your bootstrap. You came to this country. You had something to come here to build off on. My family, I can reach back. I still have nothing behind me. I am the one that's trying to pull up. And there's other people in my family. We're trying to pull us up because we have so much weight because of what slavery has done to us as a people in this country. So ADOS, Egberto, is speaking to the lineage of the brokenness of slavery in this country. And you were dropped off in a country before. You could have been here in America, but you were probably dropped off before you got here. Before that boat got here, you were dropped off. So you have, there's Britain that needs to be addressed. There's all these other countries, Europe, that needs to be addressed with some of the slaves they own. But our fight with ADOS is right here in America. So it takes nothing away from our blackness. It's speaking to what we are still dealing with as a brokenness, as a people who are still broken here in America.
Now, let me ask you a question because you brought Kamala into the discussion. And by the way, I feel exactly where you're coming from. Not only do I feel that, but I can also empathize with where you're coming from. The one thing that I stress to ADOS, Black Americans, Black African Americans is what I should say, because I am not a Black African American. I'm a Black Latino Caribbean person. Kamala is a black descendant of Black Jamaican Indian. So but the one thing we all share in common is we were all part of the slave trade.
Absolutely. And ADOS take nothing from that. And this is where you have to respect that this is an opportunity for us to attack things at their core. There may be a core movement that could be built up in Panama on the heels of the same discussion, the same argument. This is where we take and we build coalitions. This is where we take and we fuel our fight as a people. But sometimes we got to go back and we got to work in smaller chunks in order to get to the root of our problem. So ADOS is not taking anything from the bigger diaspora. No, with all of us that are Black, it's taking nothing away from that, Egberto. What we're saying is that let's concentrate where we are as a broken people. And there's data, and I'm going to talk about this in the next broadcast. I'm not going to bring the data in today, but there's data to show you where as a people, if you put us all in a Black category, this data is going to show that there's a subset of people that are like really, really at the bottom. Like you may have you may have some wealth, but there's a subset of us that are really at the bottom. And I'll bring that data in next week so we can kind of continue this conversation, because I know this is a discussion that we have to grow on. I know this is a discussion for us as a people that we have to figure out how to not let it divide us. And I think you and I have gone back and forth enough that there is a divide. And what I want you to do is to respect the ADOS movement, in which I'm not saying you don't, but I'm asking you to take a step back and say, you know what, this is a group, and it's a people. It's not even an organization. There are really no leaders. There's a people that's having a conversation and saying, we have the same problem. How do we take our issue and address it systemically here in this country and make some changes so that those of us that we know we are on the bottom, how do we bring something to the table in this pool of Blackness?
Okay, I just first want to qualify something that you said, Tamara, and that is the following. As far as respect or whatever, you are here all the time and you have an open platform to say as you wish. So that is how I roll, and that is not only how I roll with ADOS, that is how I roll with things that I agree with or disagree with. With respect to ADOS, there is, for me, it is trying to understand specifically why the ADOS movement, because we heard Johnny, another caller here, comes in and he takes your position he outright said, well, Egberto, you are not ADOS. You're not part of this. He outright said that on the program with you.
Because that's a trigger. That's actually a trigger for you, and there's a trigger for other people. Understand that it speaks to those of us who are clear that we are descendants of slavery in America. It's nothing about our blackness, Egberto. Just stay there, and I think it becomes. And I actually had a conversation with somebody about this just yesterday, because I feel a lot of pushback becomes emotional because we're all black. We are black. We're having this black experience in America. We're on the same team. But ADOS is a broken people. It's something that needs to be addressed. Let me read to you the agenda. Let me read this one mission statement. As a specific group with a specific justice claim, the ADOS movement demands a specific agenda with policy prescriptions that address the losses stemming from the institution of slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, convict leasing, mass incarceration, and immigration. It is speaking specifically to a specific group of black people. And we know who we are. Like I said, I'm telling you my story to bring it really clear to you. Netroots, there was a panel discussion that I was invited. Chris, I can't even think of Chris's name now, invited me to this panel discussion. And I sat on this panel discussion, a couple seats down from Nancy Pelosi's daughter. I was like a fish out of water. What in the hell am I doing here? I don't come from this. I don't speak to this. There's a subset of us, there's a group of people that we have to have our issues addressed separately, and you have to look at the disparities amongst us as a people. I hope I'm making this very clear to you, Egberto, and I don't understand. There's still some disconnect, and I can feel your tension still with me in this conversation.
It's not tension. What it is, first of all, is it's that I understand what you're saying clearly. I understand and I understand
why does it bother you, Egberto?
Because I think with a lot of American blacks, when I say American blacks, I mean African Americans, okay? I think a lot of the issues is similar to what happened to me when I came to the States the very first time. And I went to the Afro-American culture. I joined several organizations, and one of them was the Afro-American Culture Committee. And when I joined that, I got a whole lot of pushback then. That is a long time ago, 30 years ago. I got a whole lot of pushback because in as much as you're talking ADOS today, I feel that a lot of those people felt that same way as well then, that, well, you're not one of us. In other words, we have this pain and this stuff that we went through that they assume black folks from other parts in the Americas hadn't. And I think by having that misconception, right? I mean, you have your show, Tamara for Georgia, where we also have Ravi Caban on as a Puerto Rican, but mostly a pretty light-skinned white Puerto Rican. And she could possibly tell you about the colorization that occurs in places like Puerto Rico and Panama and all these other places. So, I mean, there is a huge commonality between this that I think I understand that it has to be taken care of from the red line position, from the reparations positions, and all these kinds of things, right? But it does put a wedge into people because
it doesn't have to.
Let me explain what I mean though. If you and I walk into a place together, the same kind of discriminative pain that you're going to have is the same one I'm going to have because we're likely in that same environment to be treated the same. Nobody knows that I have an accent.
That's our blackness. That is
exactly
the commonality. We're going to share our blackness. It's like Egberto, it's like a marriage, right? Just use this as an example. If some two people are going to get married, and one person comes to the marriage and say, "Guess what? I have these issues that I need to resolve before I can even help us in this unity together, this matrimony." So it's the same thing. Let us as a people, we have to go and work on this part. We got to do this, and then we can come back together and address our issues. In with this black agenda that we have.
Let me ask you something. My daughter.
I don't think you want to understand this. I think you feel.
No. The reason when I sent you the text today, I said, "What's the topic?" ADOS, I bet. Right? And the reason I said that is because I knew you wanted to talk about that, and I also want to listen to it, and you have to take me at face value. If I tell you this is something I want to hear, is this I want to be convinced, that is what I mean. And it looked like we're going to go a little extended time here, my friend, because I want to keep this subject up.
I don't think you and I will. You know what? I like talking to you about this because I think this will be an ongoing conversation.
Right.
You and I have been talking about this for probably a month now. 2 months?
Yes.
So this is not a new conversation, and you're still not convinced. And I think
but you said some things you hadn't said before.
Okay.
You told a story.
I told a story because I needed to bring it home to you because now I got to reach you. I got to figure out how to reach you. And I think I get the impression, Egberto, that it's emotional for you. It is. It's emotional because I think it's some sense of rejection. Like are Black people rejecting? But it's like me joining a Panamanian association. Oh, I'm going to be a part of this Panamanian association. Damn it, I ain't Panamanian. Why would I go join your Panamanian association?
But you said that,
I can't even speak to the issues of Panama and being a Latino Panamanian with all the things that you are. I could never speak to that.
But you know what?
You have this. Let me finish, Egberto, because I want to make my point because I don't get to do that too often with you. So you could go to these organizations where they speak Spanish and you're gonna fit in. You can go to these Panamanian associations and you're gonna fit in. It's like with this is an area where you don't fit in, and I think that to me is where you are like uncomfortable because this is one time where Egberto, and it becomes like personal for you, like Egberto doesn't fit in.
Yeah, it's the first time because I actually. But
damn it, did I just make my point or what?
But you know what? Because I fit in everywhere. But I mean
you don't fit in.
But you built that barrier.
I'm in law school. I'm learning something. I am in law school. I'm paying a whole lot of money to be in law school. I am learning something.
But let me tell you something. You didn't need law school to be as smart as you are. I told you that back in Arizona because you need law school
to build that case.
Hey, you need law school for the paperwork to say you're official. But what I find is there are a lot of smart people out there that the college is just a piece of paper that says, "Hey, I'm official. I really know this stuff," you know. So anyhow,
they're helping me to fine tune my skills. I have to give it to them.
Right.
Like shout outs. Like they're really helping me to fine tune.
Tamara, I want to handle. I have Daniel Ledo, one of my conservatives out here, and he's making some statements that some rather insensitive statements, but. Again, yeah, he needs that. She just blew you a nice little kiss, Daniel. Let me tell you, Daniel says excuses for Black failure, which is not true. Ooh. Okay? And then he says, let me tell you what else he said. He said, until African Americans address their broken culture, they will forever be left behind. And
Daniel, who broke the culture? Go ahead.
Let me finish. I don't want you to address this. I want to address this.
Oh, go ahead, Egberto.
Okay. And then he says, whoa, if I said publicly that all white people ate on the same team, I am always shocked by the hyper focus on race with progressives. They are the only ones left in America that think that race matters. Pathetic. I mean, if that just shows Daniel, I love you, brother, but I think it just shows you where your mind is, that you can actually make that statement that only progressives see race with a straight face. You're right. Progressives are just as racist as conservatives. They're just as racist. There's people. The difference is that progressives claim and try to want to build on getting better. Conservatives generally think things are just fine. Conserve from conservative. With respect to excuses for a broken Black culture, the culture was broken starting with colonialism and taking away what were established cultures. You can go look it up, read it, and you can also read about stolen cultures. In other words, what colonizers have always done is stolen what's good from a culture and let everything else fester. So, I mean, let's be frank. People, human beings are in fact human beings, and yes, they share the same behavior. Idi Amin Dada, the president of Uganda, was a very evil guy, and he was a Black guy killing Black people. True. A lot of the slaves that came to the Americas, right from the tip of South America right up to North America, were sold by other Black folk as well. So yes, you're right about that. Evil knows no bound. In America, and this is where I have to listen to what my sister here says, Tamara, there is a history here in America with what the white oligarchy did to black people, and we are living through that today. The brokenness that you see is the doing of the white oligarchy. It is the results of the white oligarchy, and until that is mitigated, it'll continue. So you look at black folks who you say, well, look at Oprah. Oprah is a part of the system. Racism has very little to do with color of skin and more to do with control and the effective use of the colors and other items to control people. When you learn that, and if you listen to Politics Done Right long enough, you'd learn that kind of a thing, and you'll understand what Tamara is saying. The differences that I have with Tamara, believe it or not, are pretty damn minor. And she kind of illustrated when she said, you just feel pissed off because there's one place that you ain't fitting in. Okay? So, but let me tell you, there is not, and there's something else that I've always told her, and all progressives. When we as progressives learn to work together, your ass is going to be kicked. And whose asses do I mean? I mean the asses of the oligarchy. Brother Daniel, I'm not concerned about you. I love you. And I really, really do. I'm not concerned about you because you are a victim of the same oligarchy those black folk that are messed up are victims of as well. So whereas a lot of black Americans and progressive Americans hate you, a lot of them want to not even talk to you. I want to engage you because I understand the pathology. I understand where you are coming from. And that's what's called empathy. The reason Tamara is on here today talking ADOS, in as much as I'm having a hard time with it and I could easily just say, I ain't talking about that, is because that is what progressives do. We try to understand and we try to empathize. And if for some reason we can't, we understand that everybody is an individual who has a right to what they believe in. Continue, my friend.
Amen, Egberto. I think we need to just close it out on that. Give you a round of applause.
Well, Tamara, look, it's been a pleasure.
Amen, brother.
It has been a pleasure having you on again. We'll continue this discussion. I know you have quite a few other things that you need to go ahead and get done. We'll continue this discussion another time. We have some oligarchy to discuss right now. So thank you so kindly. Folks, that is Tamara Shealey, former Georgia candidate. And you know what? She will be, we're going to make sure that she is a candidate again. You have a wonderful time, Tamara.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, folks, we continue now with oligarchy. Oligarchy. You know what? I didn't even have to write a blog of the week today. And the reason I didn't have to write a blog of the week today is that we know the answers. And, I tell you one thing, Daniel is still coming back about, oh, so whites broke black culture, then whites need to fix it. When do American... Wow, that is so old. Let me just tell you something. If you want to see the cultures, no, and I'm not saying whites broke the black culture. Whites didn't do that. The oligarchy, who in this country is controlled by a very few white people, screwed up not only the black culture, but a large percentage of the white culture as well. Let me tell you better, Mr. Daniel. What you don't see on TV, right? My daughter is doing sort of an internship at a medical company right now. And she's driving through West Virginia, Kentucky, and Ohio. And what she saw was eye-opening to her. Because in these towns that she has been visiting throughout the country, she realized that there is a subculture in this country nobody talks about. Yeah, everybody talks about Appalachia in passing. I talk about Appalachia a lot. I talk about uniting the ghettos, the barrios, and Appalachia. Why? Because when we get together and realize the commonality that we have among us all, the plutocracy, the oligarchy, then has a fight on its hand. At that point, the oligarchy, the plutocracy, la plutocracia, has a fight on its hand because they're going to realize that you're right, Daniel. Race means nothing. It was meant to mean something for a few to get power. But what my daughter saw in Appalachia, what my daughter saw in West Virginia, the degeneration that she saw there looked a hell of a lot like what we see in the ghetto that you are so saying. You said, who broke that culture? Who broke that white Appalachian culture? Who did it? Who broke my white brothers and sisters in Appalachia? Who broke them? Who gave them that wayward life? Who turned them into those criminals? Hi, Lee Grant. Welcome aboard. Who messed with my white brothers and sisters in Appalachia? You see how it sounds? Because it's true. The same people that broke, that redlined, the same people that did all those things made sure that those folks in Appalachia were just as bad. But you know what's the difference? They were left ignored. They were invisible. And you know why they were invisible? Because they didn't want Daniel Ledoux, the folks who are the folks who are the slaves to the plutocracy, under the belief that somehow they matter. They didn't want you to know that. They didn't want you to see that. They don't want you every day on TV seeing that. Because then it'll soon, people will come to the realization it has very little to do with race. And it's all socioeconomic. And it all has much more to do with what the plutocracy, the oligarchy is doing to people. So you see, Daniel, I appreciate what you have to say. Because it does have a semblance of validity in your world. Okay? You know that? Daniel now says, I have never in my life used the phrase white brothers and sisters. I know that. Maybe you should. Maybe you should use the phrase white brothers and sisters. You know why? Because if you did, you would probably grow some empathy, brother. You would probably grow some empathy. I know where you're driving. You want to say, I've never used it. I've just used my brothers and sisters. I don't see color. Yeah, you don't. Yeah, you don't. Let me tell you something. I see colors. I talk about my brown and black and every kind of brother, my Asian brothers and sisters. I qualify a whole lot of things. And you know why I qualify them? In this world, we still need qualifications. And not doing qualifications leave people invisible. Yes, actually, until we get race extricated, more has to be focused on race. Yes, Daniel. Yes. Yes. You should focus on your intrinsic racism that you think is not there, that many others see. And it's not just progressives who see it. By the way, I do get direct mail from conservatives, and some of them try to tell me, please note, I am not like Daniel Ledoux. Okay? And I don't, deep inside, I don't even think you're bad. I just think you're confused. I really do think you're confused. You don't understand it. And why you don't understand it is all the side messages that are coming over Fox News and these other stations, these right-wing radio shows. They have to keep you from they have to keep that division going. But oligarchy, I want to talk about that. I want to get off the race subject right now because this is a lot deeper than race. And let me see if anything came back on Facebook. It looks like Facebook is still giving people hell. So I'm so happy, Daniel, that you came to YouTube Live and some on Periscope. Yeah, you have no racial bias. Of course we have. We all have racial bias. I can tell you, I've even told my stories about racial bias and how I've been mitigating it because of my white buddy. I'll tell you what, I'll tell you that quick story. I'll try to shorten it and tell you a quick story just to make my point. It was during the welfare debate back in the 90s, I believe, when Clinton cut the welfare was about to cut the welfare rates and all of that. And I told my friend, I said, watch what's going to happen when it seems like cutting welfare is going to become a reality, because you have to remember, food stamps is not only good for the food stamp recipient, food stamps are also very good for the food company, the Costco's of the world, not Costco's, but the Cisco's of the world, etc. They're very dependent on food stamps as well, because it brings a huge influx of money. So watch how the face of welfare is going to change. Because when they're showing welfare on TV, they usually show a minority family, black or Latino or whatever, and rarely do you see a white family or whatever, even though most of the people who receive welfare are white. So, yes, I'm going to switch to plutocracy and oligarchy, but I want to tell you this story. So anyhow, I told him, watch how the face of welfare is going to change. And when it seems like we're going to get very strict on welfare, the face of welfare on the advertising became white. And he said, Egberto, man, you're really right, but I'm surprised about that. And then I looked at him in passing. I don't remember exactly how the discussion went. I looked at him and I said, well, I mean, you have your own biases as well, too. I mean, you are all great and you love everybody, all that kind of stuff. But let your daughter let your blue-eyed blonde daughter come home with a black dude or a Latino or whatever. And he was just waiting for that. And he said, she did. Egberto, you just made a damn fool out of yourself. And that is when I learned. You'd stop assuming. Stop just going and making those assumptions. So I try to be very careful about that. Because in effect, he was one of the real progressives, that 33% progressives that I talk about. So anyhow, getting on to the story of oligarchy and plutocracy. I was having a discussion earlier today. And it's an important concept, A lot of people are starting to throw their hands up in the air. They said, we can't do anything about it. The cake is baked. There's absolutely nothing that we can do to solve our problems because there are too many people out there that just, our voice doesn't count it. The rest count. And I started to explain how the system really works and why it is that way and why it is that I am doing, along with many others, independent media, doing what we do. And I gave a very good example with oil companies. And I said, let's take the oil companies and when I say oil companies, I mean oil service companies, chemical companies that service the oil industry, and all these guys. I said, let's look at Cancer Alley right down here in Pasadena, where there's a oversampled rate of cancer because of all the chemicals that are allowed to be thrown in the air, the water, and the soil. Then I said, we know, the progressives know that those oil companies are killing people. We also know that it is the government's responsibility to regulate these companies to go ahead and ensure that they don't kill people. Why isn't it happening? Well, it's not happening because people don't know that they have the power to do it, and that the oil companies run the government. And I'm like, yes, but we still have one person, one vote. So how else can it happen if we know that people eventually know that dioxin is killing them, that all these chemicals and pollutants are killing them? What is the issue there? Why aren't they raising up and voting accordingly? And then I pointed out, and yes, a plutocracy is far more plausible. You might want to stick with plutocracy. It makes you seem less crazy. Conspiracy. Oh, boy. Masticator. By the way, I like that name. Oligarchy is, well, I'm not going to go into terms, but plutocracy and oligarchy, there's a subset, brother. But I'm not going to go into that discussion. If you want to add to why you say oligarchy is basically the Star Chamber, go ahead and explain what you mean by that before I kind of get anything else on that. See exactly what you mean by I want to see exactly what you mean by that statement. Maybe I didn't quite understand it, but thank you for placing it. And if you want to add to it, I'd love to hear what else you have to add, Masticator. But anyhow, but to placate you right now, I'll stick with plutocracy until you give me some more stuff on oligarchy. Anyhow, so these people have power. They still have the vote. So why aren't they using it? Well, then you have the companies who have been preaching to them the lies that says regulations will cost you your job. These people have to decide then, do I want my job or do I want to get these guys regulations to stop killing us? And the immediacy is jobs. So they have this mental block into believing that regulation, bad, Why bad? Because it costs me my job. Not realizing that they're being taxed many times. As I explained earlier, I made the comment and said, it's amazing with the oil companies, right? They sell you, they make gas for a relatively inexpensive price, right? That doesn't take into account all the cost of that gas. Example, because they get efficiencies and more profits for their shareholders by being able to do more pollution. In other words, less money is going into mitigating pollution or preventing pollution from occurring in the first place. So that is extra money for their shareholders and their executives because they're mitigating that. But above and beyond that now, because they're throwing all that crap in the air, in the water, in the soil, people are getting sicker. But who pays for these people's insurance? The people themselves. So the company pays the person to work. The person buys insurance, and that insurance is then used to fix the illnesses caused by the rich folk, well, I'm going to leave the oligarchy for now, the plutocracy, right? So therefore, the plutocracy made them sick. They're going to pay for the insurance that's going to try to make them better. And they pay the co-pays, and they pay the premiums, and they pay the deductibles, all of that out of the pocket of the pay they give you. So we pay you less to get you sick. We charge less for gas that doesn't cover the cost of all that happens to you. We know who the plutocrats are. The plutocrats are the major shareholders of all these major corporations, and they make up about 1% of the population. And below that, we have what I call the indentured servants. I have a bad word that I use when I was talking to my wife earlier. I have another word that I use that it's not proper to put on air who those are. The servants of the plutocracy, that 10% that are the managers and the executives and all of those folks that get bonuses and that kind of stuff, they are there to do the dirty work. The thing about it is they're not bad people either. Many times they don't understand the way the system is made, how it actually works themselves. So, okay, we have Avianji says, oligarchy ruled by the powerful, plutocracy ruled by the rich, corporatocracy ruled by corporation as corrupts or politics. These three terms can be used interchangeably. And that's what I normally do, Avian Q. I wanted Masticator to kind of, I think, if I understand what Masticator was trying to say, Masticator was trying to say that people try to they've already made, just like how they screwed up the word liberal, they probably screwed up the word oligarchy to mean something else. I don't know, but I'm not sure exactly. I asked Masticator to be more succinct on what he's saying, but I haven't heard from Masticator back yet. I hope Masticator is still listening so that he can come out and tell us a little bit more about that. But folks, as I'm telling you now, so what we have a plutocracy is that people now feel they don't have control. It just seems too difficult. In other words, if they decide to be activists, let's see, is my name that difficult to pronounce? Avangian Q. What is it? Avangian Q. Do it phonetically, and I promise not to screw it up anymore. It looks like it says Avangian Q, but maybe I'm wrong. Anyhow, here is the thing. People feel like they can't step out on a limb. Well, I've stepped out on a limb. Anybody can step out on a limb. When enough of us step out on a limb, it's called, we get critical. Oh, I got it that time. Thank you. Avangian Q. All right, I did it right. Anyhow, when enough of us step out on a limb, that is when they start to listen. But it can't be just one group of us, a whole bunch of city people or a whole bunch of suburb people or whatever. This movement has to be, we are building a movement that is profound, and not only profound, but wide. In other words, I want my brothers and sisters in Appalachias. I want my brothers and sisters in the ghettos. I want my brothers and sisters in the barrios. We all have to come out all at once against the system and realize that we're in the same boat. And once we do that, then that is when you show your power. And I don't foresee, look, this is when I jumped onto this stuff, right? I said straight out, My goal was not to tell people we're going to change things overnight. We're going to have ups and we're going to go down a little bit. We're going to go up again and we're going to go down a little bit. We're going to go up again. And right now, Donald Trump is that big downer. I've been doing this before Donald Trump. And we had some ups and we're going to have some more ups and downs. But what I think is our major thing to do right now, and this is where all of you can play a part, and all of you should play a part, is as we are learning together, understanding how the corporatocracy work, understanding how the things that they do, the way they fool people. If you remember, I showed you a commercial, an advertisement that they're doing against Medicare for all. It's a plausible argument that they make. I have some plausible arguments. A professor called me up yesterday and he said, Egberto, let me tell you something about Medicare for all and why if you push it in this particular manner, you will lose. And he was right. And I am rethinking exactly how we have to explain the Medicare for all. Thank you for that clarification, Masticator. Oligarchy is ruled by a small group. And I see your point, and I think you're saying that it's a larger group, and you're correct. Now, when oligarchy, I guess would be the subset. I hear you. I hear what you're saying, and I think you're right. I mean, if you take a look at all my writings, I normally say plutocracy. I normally don't say oligarchy, but I think you're right. In fact, I'm pretty sure you're right. But as I was mentioning before, I never thought this was going to be something that didn't take a long time. My thing was, would people have the stay-in power to not just throw their hands up in the air and say, I give in to the master? You know, slavery lasted too long. Slavery lasted as long as it did, not because the master had more power than the massive number of slaves, but the slaves mentally speaking, could never get together en masse to really take over. Same thing in South Africa and apartheid, right? In South Africa and apartheid, what you find is there were an order of magnitude more black folk working in people's homes, working in people's factories, everywhere. Yeah, they didn't have all the arms, but you don't need arms for guerrilla warfare. But, you know, somehow that small amount of people were able to keep control. And what my contention is, it is always when you have control of one's minds. And the Powell Manifesto had laid out the infiltration of churches, the infiltration of universities, schools, books, everything, to ensure that they have control of your mind. That is why people just have to say the word socialism, and bang, people go into berserkdom. And the reason they go into berserkdom is because they don't understand what's going on. So I said, I'm not even going to use the word socialism. Just go ahead and tell people what you want to do for them. We want to give you good health care. We want to give you child care. We want to give you family leave. We want to give you all these issues that humanity makes you living a human life much better. My head hurts and my heart weeps hearing such lies, obfuscation, venom, and downright hypocrisy. I'm out. See you Monday. It was a pleasure having you, Daniel, but it's definitely not lies, Daniel. But someday we should have a cup of coffee. But anyhow, see you on Monday, brother. But anyway, I think we're having a show on Friday. I'm not sure. I'm going to see Elizabeth Warren, but I'll see if I can have a show on Friday. I know I'm not having one tomorrow, but we'll see. I may do a little video to put out tomorrow. But anyhow, folks, I need to do a quick plea here. If you're part of, I'd love for you to become a part of our network. I'd love for you to become a subscriber of Politics Done Right. I'm asking you to go to patreon.com/Politics Done Right. patreon.com/Politics Done Right and subscribe. It's very inexpensive. All our subscribers immediately have online access to our books. As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, as well as our book In the Making, How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It. Let's go ahead and become a subscriber. We are very good stewards of your money. We're heading to Philly next week for the Netroots Nation Convention, so we will be broadcasting from Philadelphia. I think you're going to love that. We're going to have tons of interviews with activists, bloggers, writers, and the works of people who are making a difference in this country, people who are saying we are not going to tolerate this any longer. We are going to change this system so that it is good for us all. How to make America utopia, take away the economy from those who rigged it. And as I've always told you, I've lost a lot of weight and maintained it off and got my blood pressure down. It had spiked to 240 over 140. Had to take life seriously because I was a few points away from death. Now all's good. Lose weight and be fit now. Say no to the snake oil weight loss. That's a part of your subscription. All my books and any new book that I write will be a part of the subscription. Patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Patreon.com/politicsdoneright. On the screen, these are all the ways that you can help Politics Done Right stay strong and do the work it needs to do. First, you can subscribe at patreon.com/politicsdoneright, and all of this is on the screen. So I'm really saying this for the podcasters. Patreon.com/politicsdoneright. If you want to donate, just go to politicsdoneright.com/donate. And please shop at our stores, store.politicsdoneright.com. Store.politicsdoneright.com. So what do we have at the store? We have t-shirts, nice t-shirts actually. And we have, of course, our cups, and we have covers for telephones, all the works with Politics Done Right. Let people know you believe in doing what's right. You believe in getting the word out. You want to support a network that is not owed to the plutocracy, not owed to the drug companies and all these other folk at all. Folks we are just out there listening to you and making sure that you are taken care of and making sure that the things that you hear are not filtered through some corporation at all. Oh, wow. Thank you very much for having been here, Avanjan Q. It was great having you here. I don't know why I didn't post your links, but I'll take a look at it after the show is over. And in fact, we are pretty darn close to being over. I really appreciate all of you that spend the time here with me, because my expectation, my hope, is that we will learn these issues. We'll understand what's really going on, how the economy works, how the system deprives others of what's theirs. I want to talk about all of that as we go forward. And then I don't only want to talk, but I want us to have action on what we're discussing. I want to make sure that we also do positive actions to get things done. We can do this. We don't have to sit back and think that we don't have a choice. We don't have to sit back and think for some reason we can't make that change. I can tell you, I speak to hundreds of people, actually every week. Hundreds of people, if not thousands sometimes, if I include Facebook and all the other multimedia channels that I'm on. And I tell you, people are hungry. People want to hear. Even if they disagree with you, they listen. And even if they immediately disagree with you, you plant seeds in their heads. You plant seeds in their heads. Your goodness is planted in their heads. And even if they're not immediately responsive, when that time comes that triggers that message that you put out there, when that occurs, it leaves them with the fertilizer that is necessary for them to make that change. It's not going to be overnight. It won't be overnight at all, and don't expect that. In fact, I'm fearful of overnight change because it's not generally lasting. Change that comes from within. And I've always told my story, and for the newcomers, I'll tell you, I'm from Central America. I'm Black, Latino, Caribbean. I have all the traits necessary for being a terrible homophobic sexist. And that's who I was several decades ago. And now I am one of the biggest proponents of gay rights and women rights. And that it wasn't only an intellectual exercise. And I use myself as an example because a lot of folks complain about me trying to reach the deplorables, trying to reach those others. And just like I don't like to be considered the other, they don't want to be considered the other. And you have to try to understand what is their pathology. And you see, I understand what their pathology is. And that's why I would never, ever stop talking to them. And that is why we should all engage. That is what I intend to do. That is how change is going to come. I am not going to make change only talking to you good people here, the ones that want to hear a progressive channel. I'm going to be talking to you all the time. But I'm going to be also expanding to speak to all the rest. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3.